What's up, y'all? Welcome to another episode of the Perspectives Podcast. This is Chase here. Unfortunately, we do not have Josue with us today. The boy is living life down in Brazil and having a good time down there, which y'all will get some content from his time down there here coming up soon. He's been recording some episodes down in Brazil with some different missionaries down there with some different friends, and he's really been enjoying it down there, getting a lot of wisdom, a lot of revelation from the Lord, and I'm really excited for him. I was a little jealous of him going down there, but it is so good, and I'm so joyful for him. But we're back with another episode, and we have a exciting guest on today. Guy who's grown to be a dear friend, an awesome mentor in a way. We have Tony Tillman on the podcast. Tony, how you doing, man?
I'm good.
Yeah.
Chilling.
Yeah, just hanging here in Nashville with the fam.
I am, man. So that boy Josue is living his best life, ain't he?
For real, man.
In Brazil.
Like, out of all places. And I've been seeing his IG stories and everything like that.
It's crazy.
They feeding him well down there.
Hey.
He's having fun. It's good, man. And so it's so sick. But yeah, and then you just got done moving a friend today.
I did, man. I hate moving.
A little sore.
I hate moving.
Yeah, man, me too. I can relate. Like, it's not the most fun time in the world. And even it was a little cold today in Nashville. So
yeah,
even then.
And see, I like I told you before we went on, bro, I literally try to get out of moving, helping people move, man. But this one, it wasn't as hard as, look, I've had to move by myself from a second story floor apartment.
Are you serious?
Yeah, and I'm talking about not just a couch. I'm talking about a whole living room set, 2 bedroom sets, a bed and dresser, the tall dresser and the long dresser. Yeah. Like, I had to use rope to let stuff down. People was passing by me like, excuse me. I'm like, dang, that's crazy.
You can't help out a little bit?
You know what I'm saying?
Goodness. So, well, dang, man. Well, I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, I appreciate you for having me.
No, we've been trying to make this happen for a little bit.
We did, bro. So it finally happened. So,
yeah, man. So
it's gonna be good.
It'll be legit, and I'm really excited to just kind of hear everything that happened on like the trip that we're gonna talk about, the Israel trip. But yeah, man. So for those listeners who might not know who you are, I just want to share a little just about your story, your testimony, just whatever you want to share.
Yeah, my name is Tony Tillman. If you want to look me up or something like that, you definitely can look that up. The Tony Tillman, all platforms. Mm-hmm. But my name is Tony Tillman. I'm originally from Camden, Arkansas.
Yep.
Grew up, joined a gang when I was 12.
Mm-hmm.
I was a Crip till I became a Christian. I got in all sorts of trouble. Arrested a few times. I was arrested once for attempted murder. But I had a revelation. It's weird. I used to have these dreams, like the Lord nobody came to my neighborhood to evangelize me. You know what I mean? Like I didn't know what an evangelist was. You know what I'm saying? Until I became a Christian. So the only people who would come to the hood was the Mormons in our neighborhood. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So and what's weird is that when I was on house arrest, some Mormons came to my house and evangelized me, and I literally considered becoming them. It was during the time when I was seeking and trying to find out who God was that I considered becoming a Mormon. It was weird. It's weird now. It wasn't weird then, but it's weird now. You know what I mean? So I had no preference of like faiths and religion. You know what I mean? I just knew I believed that a God existed. And I had heard of Jesus. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But as far I knew he was God's son. I heard he was God's son. But as far as the functionality of faith in him, I had no clue what that was about, because I thought Jesus was for pastors, kids, and good people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I didn't think he was for gangbangers. Like, nah, we're devil's kids. So during this time, like, the Lord was giving me like these odd dreams about like I'm walking down the street and fire coming from the sky, and I would like wake up, and it was a reoccurring dream. And so when I got arrested, Spent a little time in jail. I was 17 at the time.
Okay.
And while I was in jail or whatever, I was going from the jail to the courthouse to see the judge to see if I can post bail. On the way, the police officer was playing a tape or a radio program that was a pastor, I guess, was kind of talking about the Book of Revelation.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It was just a reading of it. You know what I mean? It wasn't
Yeah.
like a sermon in there. It was just a reading of it, like an audio book.
Yeah.
I guess. And so, it piqued my interest because I heard I knew, okay, it's talking about God, and it's talking about about stars falling from heaven, and it's talking about a lamb, and it was just a lot of odd things. Two things that I recognized was God and stars falling from the sky, right?
Yeah.
So I asked him what he was listening to, because I was interested, and I'm like, what's that? And he was like, oh, it's the Book of Revelation, and I'm like, who wrote that? And he's like, nah, it's in the Bible. So we got into like this argument. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because he told me it was a book. And I asked him where to find it. He said it's in the Bible. So I'm like, but I thought the Bible was a book.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, but it's So we go back and forth. So he finally was like, oh, it's the last chapter of the Bible. And that made sense to me, right?
Yeah.
So I go home. I get put on house arrest. My mom, she signed me out, signature bond, and then while I was on house arrest, I would read the Book of Revelation every single night. All 22 chapters, like every night. I would just read, start from. It was like my ritual. Right before I would go to bed, I would grab the Bible because I asked my grandma for a Bible, right? So I get the Bible and I would read Revelation literally every night. And the funny thing is, one day I thought that because I was reading it so much, I started thinking I kind of was like feeling myself a little bit. And I'm like, I'm gonna read something else. And I'll never forget. I opened it, just kind of thumbed it, and opened it to Galatians 5, to where it talks about the fruit of the Spirit and the works of the flesh. And I remember reading it and thinking to myself, this is the dumbest stuff I ever heard of, man. It's so, and I never read it again. Until I became a Christian. I just went back to Revelation. Like, I just stick with Revelation, man, because I felt like I understood that. I didn't understand it. I just followed the narrative. You know what I mean? I was fascinated by the idea that the world is going to end this way. That's how I thought at the time.
Yeah, and it was probably interesting compared to
super
Galatians.
Interesting. Galatians made no sense. Like, fruit of the Spirit. What? Like fruit of the looms? Like what? That? Like what? That don't make works of the flesh? Like, it made no sense to me. You know what I mean? But I became a Christian probably let me see, I was 17 at the time when that happened. And I became a Christian when I was 20 and 21. You know what I mean? But I remember reading, when I would read Revelation, it was my introduction to the lake of fire. You know what I mean? And I remember like reading that and how it talks about all the souls coming out the grave and standing before the throne of God, and the books being open, and it talked about how people's names wasn't found in it, was cast into the lake of fire. And I never forget it. Mac, I'm a very like my I see pictures, you know what I mean?
In your mind,
I'm a visual
pictures.
person, and so I would always imagine that moment and realize, or at least in my imagination, I would see myself in that crowd. You know what I mean? And I had no clue of how to get out of that. You know what I'm saying? Like, because I'd never been evangelized. I didn't know. Nobody told me that Jesus saves bad people. You know what I mean? Like, I never knew Jesus saved bad people. I thought you had to be good in order to be able to follow him. You had to be a good person, or your mom or your dad had to be a pastor. I literally believe that. You know what I mean? And so I remember, like, I would hang, like, when I went to court, I ended up getting like probation and a huge fine, right? And so I was back in the neighborhood, with I had certain things I couldn't do, like certain people I couldn't be around, and things like that. But I was hard headed. I still hung around my friends, and so, but we would be hanging out in my grandma's yard, and this like overwhelming sorrow would come over me because of what I had been reading in Revelation, because I didn't read it no more, right? But I had never forgot that lake of fire moment. You know what I mean? And this overwhelming sorrow would come over me, and I would literally excuse myself and go to the bathroom and just cry. You know, I would just cry because I didn't know what to do or how to get out of it, you know? And then I would clean myself up and go back outside and chill like I just went to the bathroom or something, you know what I mean? So, but once I heard the gospel, that it literally changed my life, you know what I mean? It made me realize like, oh wow, I didn't know that I could be saved because I thought I had to clean myself up. You know what I mean? Because
that whole thing.
That was my plan. You know, it's like, okay, well, my good got to outweigh my bad. So let me start doing good stuff. Let me stop doing this. Let me stop doing that. Let me go to church. You know what I mean? And that was the solution for me. But it was still like, I've done a lot of bad stuff. I got a lot of stuff to make up for. You know what I mean? I got to do a lot of good. So finally, I went to this service, and the pastor, you know, he was preaching from Matthew 24, which oddly ties into Revelation. You know what I mean? Talking about his return, and so he had my attention, and then he talked about that, and then he went into Revelation, talked a little bit about that, and I'm focused in, like listening, and then finally he asked kind of this rhetorical question of how to escape it. You know what I mean? And it was like the season finale of a suspenseful show. You know what I mean? I was on the edge of my seat, and he finally gave the answer. And it was like, you ever seen The Christmas Story?
Yeah.
You seen The Christmas Story?
Yeah.
You know when he gets like the little codex, and he goes to the radio, and he writing these codes out, right? And then he gets the answer, and it's something like drink more Ovaltine or something like that. And he's so disappointed. It was like deflating for him. That's how that moment was for me. It was like, I'm thinking it's this climax thing that I gotta do. You know what I mean? He's gonna answer this question. And his answer was, just believe on Jesus. And I'm like,
that's it?
What? What? Believe in Jesus? That's what? Surely there's more.
Yeah, that's too easy.
You know what I mean? It's too easy, right? And he expounded on that, and just kind of, it was like that day I knew I have confidence in my salvation because that day I knew God was speaking to me.
So
you know what I mean? He met me, in that place at that time. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it changed my life. You know what I mean? That's what how I became converted. That's how I got converted.
Damn, man. And it's so good because like being able to see the Lord and his grace like work slowly through all those years.
Yeah.
And not abandoning you. Like, because in Romans it says, I mean, nothing can separate us from the Lord and his love. But at the same time, like, I think the majority of that comes from like the Lord not being willing to abandon us.
Yeah.
And being willing to like stay in proximity to us to where we can't be separated.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I think there's a part of it where it's just like, even if like we want to stay close to the Lord, like, yeah, he's always going to be there. But even in the times where we're running away, like, he's pursuing us so much that like we can't like be separated from him. Amen.
He's faithful. That's the thing. He's faithful. And that's, as a believer, I think that's the thing that I had to wrestle with the most. And that's probably the one, if I say other than the gospel itself, the one truth that has been the most important thing that I've learned in my life is the fact that he's faithful. I know what it means when I read that, when he's boasting on himself to say that he's faithful.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it takes the pressure off of me in the sense of not worrying about now. Of course, that's one of the fruit of the spirit where, I'm to pursue faithfulness, you know what I'm saying? Not just vertically, I mean, not just horizontally, but vertically also, you know what I mean? Not just to people, my brothers and my family and sisters and people like that, but also faithful to him. So it's something I'm supposed to actively pursue, but it takes the pressure off me when I feel I'm not being faithful, whether that's to a calling, whether that's to a commandment, whether that's to a family member, a friend, or whoever, you know what I mean? But in my walk with God himself, it's this idea where when I'm not faithful, he still is faithful.
Yeah.
Because he says it's just nothing more than that. For me, you know what I'm saying? It's like, it gives me comfort that to know that he's faithful.
Yeah. And whenever we understand that, it going to the pressure part that you talked about, it removes this lean towards legalism
Yeah.
that could happen.
Oh yeah.
And then as well, it removes any possibility of pride that could
Facts.
come up in our heart, because whenever we realize that, like, it's not our ability to earn anything
Right.
that's getting us there, but it's truly like the Lord and his faithfulness
Yeah.
and his grace, like,
Yeah.
it's so good.
He provides it all. That's what he said. That's what Paul wrote when he talked about our faith. When he said, "It's not a work; it's by faith. You've been saved by grace through faith,
Yeah.
not of works." You know what I'm saying? And the idea is he said, "This is the gift of God, right? This is the gift from God." I'm paraphrasing,
Yeah.
but the gift was not the salvation. The salvation is a gift also, don't get me wrong, but that's not the gift that Paul was speaking about. He was talking about the faith.
Yeah.
The faith is the gift from God. It was a gift that God would give us faith enough to receive him and to believe on him. You know what I mean? And so that's the thing. It's like, nah, he provides the whole thing, and he holds the whole thing together. So the pressure of me having to hold it together, like, of course, I'm expected
to walk
a certain way, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Walk in obedience and love him and keep his commandments, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm expected to do those things. That's a part of the sanctification process,
Yep.
you know what I'm saying? But as far as my salvation goes, it's like, that's not on my back. That's not a weight that I carry. It's on him.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? And he's faithful. He said he's faithful. And Paul said the work that he began in me, he's gonna finish it. You know what I'm saying? To the last day, to the day of redemption, the day that Christ comes back. So it takes that person knowing and learning what it means when he says he's faithful. You know what I mean? From beginning to end. Like I said, nobody evangelized me.
Yeah.
You know, I never had that experience besides the Mormon people, that where somebody comes and say, "Hey, do you know where you're gonna go when you die?"
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, I didn't have that moment growing up. You know what I'm saying? Nobody came to me and asked me if I believed in Jesus. You know what I'm saying? Nobody did that. Nobody knocked on my door and did that except for the Mormons, you know? But even with that stuff, and the story I had about them, right? So they come to my house, right, during this time while I'm reading Revelation, right?
Yeah.
And during this time, I'm broken. You know, I'm like, just tell me what I have to do. You know, just show me the way, right? So I'm still on house arrest. And they come to the door and they knock on the door. And they come in, you know, and I have this conversation. Well, we was on the porch. We had this conversation, and they're talking, you know, about Jesus. You know, they're talking about God.
Yeah.
And finally, it was just certain things that they were saying. I remember saying to them, it's like, I'm not sure. It's like, I don't know, that God doesn't sound like this God.
Yeah.
They sound different from the information they was giving me.
Wow.
And I don't even know how at the time I was reading it so much that it was like God was starting to develop like a profile of himself in my mentality. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I was reading it, you know, and I didn't know much about God, but from reading Revelation, it was certain aspects about God that I imagined he was like. And so when they was talking, they was saying the stuff they were saying, it's like, I don't know if it sounds like the same. It just sounds like a different. And I had no clue that Mormonism was
a thing, and different.
Mormonism, and because, you know, they're considered, you know, Christian, a sect of Christianity.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then you have like other denominations. Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I had no clue that they were separate.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like, but what they were saying was like, I don't know about that one. You know what I'm saying? It just sounded, so they was like, well, here, take the book, you know, and pray about it, you know, and you pray about it. And I believe that the Lord will answer you. And I was genuine. I was like, okay, all right, cool. I'll do that. And I went about my day. And then later on that night, as I always did, it was my ritual to grab a Bible. Yep. So this night I was like, well, all right, well, instead of reading that, I'm going to read this other book they gave me and see what that's talking about. You know what I'm saying? So I went looking for the book, couldn't find the book. You know, I asked because I lived with my grandma at the time, asked my grandma, like, yo, you know, what that book them dudes gave me, you know? And she was like, I don't know what book. I ain't seen no book, this and that. And I'll never forget thinking, dang, some angels came and threw the book away.
Ooh, swooped it up. Wow.
Some angels came and threw it. But to this day, I've asked my grandma, she said she never touched it. But to this day, I'd be like, I think my grandma threw it away. You know what I mean?
Looking
I think
out
she
for
saw
you.
it because it was on the edge of the couch. I believe she got it and threw it. And that's why I went back to get it later on that night and it was gone. So I had been reading Revelation every night. So in Revelation, there's a lot of angels flying around with these messages and stuff. You know what I mean? So I'm thinking, an angel can't, that's I've believed God answered my prayer. It's like, God answered my prayer. The angel, and so they came back the next week to follow up and was like, yo, did the Lord speak to you? And I'm like, yeah, they spoke to me.
Yeah.
Well, what did he say? And I was like, well, bro, I don't think that's the route that the Lord is saying to me. You know what I mean?
Y'all tripping.
Yeah, he said y'all tripping. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He said y'all tripping. But yeah, so that, and I didn't get saved right away. You know what I mean? But that moment kind of built my confidence as far as believing that God is actually hearing me. At the least, he's hearing me. He at least sees me and hears me. Because in the hood, that's some regular feeling and sentiment is that, God doesn't hear our prayers. You know what I mean? God don't hear us. God don't see us. We out here, our friends are dying. We're dying. All this madness is going on. There is no way God hears us or see us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Because just wondering, in the community that you lived in, did the majority of the families not have like a father in the house?
I mean, for the most, I know all my friends. None of my friends' dads was in the house.
Yeah, because I think that's something as far as like y'all feeling like the community in general. But then as well, God abandoning y'all is a reflection of like y'all's.
Most that way, the father, and that's the thing. The thing about the father is like when you read the scriptures, right? Like right now in our study, right? In our study, we're going through Genesis.
Yeah.
Really slowly, right? And I do some of the teaching of it. Right?
Yeah.
And so what I'm learning is that the inheritance, when the scripture talks about the inheritance, remember the Isaac situation with Jacob and Esau?
Yep.
Right? And then Esau sells the birthright, but he wants to keep the blessing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Well, the birthright, the blessing was the finances. The birthright was the promise of the deity of the patriarch. That's the thing you passed on. So now you're responsible as an oldest son. You're responsible for passing this God and his blessings that he promised this family, promised me, or promised my father, who was Abraham. You're responsible now for passing that to your son, and he's responsible for passing it to his son. Yeah. So it was about the passing of the deity. It was about passing of his God. And so when you rip out the father, not that mothers, can't do it, you know what I mean? Because they definitely can, you know what I'm saying? But it's just something about establishing a faith, the father being, because even in their writings, the father in the house, the image of that was the bull. You know what I mean? Even the image of God for a lot of different cultures in the Middle East or whatever, the image of God, or the letter for God, the word for God in the pictures was the bull.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like without the father in the house, the son, he don't get the opportunity to get that birthright. You know what I'm saying? And so the idea of God becomes warped. Satan comes in and warps that idea, and he starts to see God as he see his own father. And so if his father is abusive, he see God as an abusive person. If his father is negligent, he sees God as negligent. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's hard to grab an identity from as far as God's identity or his, personification.
Yeah, because it's difficult to grab that abstract idea whenever you don't see a acting out of it, like in your life and a pattern of it. And it's crazy because like some of my friends growing up grew up without fathers. Like by his grace, like the majority of them did grow up with fathers, and it was amazing to see that. And it was amazing to see like the Lord working in that and us being able to have good role models. But one, I think it's so heartbreaking to see like families without like fathers and that father figure. But then as well, what I will give the Lord credit for is like his ability to work through like the situations that do come up. with single mothers and whatnot, like not to bring glory to that, because
Nah,
like
man,
yeah,
that's I know my mom, like my mom.
yeah,
My mom was a soldier, bro. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like we didn't. I mean, my mom was a single parent to 5 children, because we
man,
all had the same father. You know what
yeah,
I mean? All of us, all my siblings. Like if you see my sister and my brother, like we all literally looked alike. We all look alike. You know what I
yeah,
mean? We literally come from the same pack.
yeah,
Same package, same mother, same
yeah,
father. So when they got divorced, I think I was like 7.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying? And that's when she had the whole "you're the man of the house" conversation with me and stuff like that.
yeah,
And so it's a thing where it's like I didn't grow up without a dad, in the sense of I didn't know my dad or never saw my dad. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Because I would see my dad I would be walking down the street and see my dad pass me on the
right
street.
there, yeah,
You know what I mean? So I would literally could be in Walmart, and it has happened plenty of time where I would be in Walmart. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
And he passed right by me and didn't even see me, and I had to get his attention. And then when he turned around, hey, Tony, what's going on? Hey,
dang,
well,
man,
where you going? This and that, this and that. All right, well, hey, you be careful about that. And then he goes his way, I go my way. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So it was like the way I view God was like that. Was like, he's negligent. You know what I mean? If I'm not good enough, he's gonna abandon me. He's gonna leave me. He doesn't really. I even now I still have to fight through this idea that I have to fight through the thoughts that come that says God doesn't care.
yeah,
You know what I mean? I literally have to preach the gospel to myself and preach the scriptures to myself to
so
remind
good,
myself that God is faithful and God does care and God does. Oh, it says it in His Word that I can cast all my cares on Him because He cares. And sometimes I'll catch myself even in my prayers where I'm like it's like I'm taking this chance praying to you about this because you said in your word. The writer said in the Bible that I can cast my cares on you because you care. And I have to remind myself of that because it's so easy for me to slip into that darkness of God doesn't care about me. You
yeah.
know what I mean?
And then going off of that, and this is related to like your experience with the Mormons, is like it's crazy how the first thing that maybe like the Lord brought you to whenever he was
Yeah.
reconciling you to his heart is to his word, and how us reading the word allows us to get a proper image of the Father's character. And then
Yeah.
from there, he's able to protect us from those lies, whether it's like Mormonism in one example of like the
Mm-hmm.
distortion of his character, or the abandonment factor that you were struggling with,
Yeah.
negligence factor. Like
Yeah.
he was able to protect you from those
Yeah.
because you were in his word, because you were able to see a clear picture of his character
Yeah, and
and everything like
it's
that.
in his it's the idea of learning that's how you know his reputation. That's how
Yeah.
you learn. Matter of fact, in like I know the Genesis thing, man, it's been rocking me. But that's one thing I learned about Abraham. In my when I went deeper into the study of Abraham and to the language and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I learned that when the Bible says that he built an altar and he called upon the name of the Lord. And the name, when it says the name in the
Mhm.
Hebrew is Shem, right? Shem, Shem.
Okay.
That's how you pronounce it. But the Shem is the reputation of a person. So when he says, I'm going
Wow.
to make your name great, when he says that, when the Lord says that to Abraham, I'm going to make your name great, he's talking about his reputation. I'm going to give you a great reputation. So when it
Wow.
says that Abraham called upon the shame of God, of the Lord, he's talking about, the writer is talking about, he started to learn of God's reputation.
Wow.
So then he began to, and that's why you see certain things where he fights the kings, and
Yeah.
he goes into Egypt, and God delivers his wife, from the king, and they leave, and then they have, Lot gets kidnapped, and then he has to go and fight the kings.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then he meets Melchizedek, and so he gets a picture, you see with Sodom and Gomorrah when he's about to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah, and the Lord is like, should I hide from Abraham what I'm about to do? Since
Yeah.
I'm going to make him a great name, a great reputation, and he's going to teach his children, right?
Yeah.
And then he tries to negotiate with the Lord, right? And then he sees the great patience of the Lord, so he starts to learn of God's reputation. And that's what we do when we read the scriptures. As we read the scriptures, what it does is unlock or gives us this view into God's reputation. You know what I mean? The more we read it, the more confidence we have in his reputation, because then we go about our daily lives and we start to call on him, just like Abraham, called up on a name, called up on his reputation. So when I'm fearful, hey, the Lord says he's my strong tower. He's my shield and buckler. You know what I mean? So when I'm lonely, the Lord said he'll never leave me nor forsake me.
Amen.
When I'm sad, cast your cares upon the Lord, for he cares for you. I start to see his reputation. You know what I mean? So when I'm in trouble, I call on his reputation, right? I call on him according to his reputation as I know him. And you can't do that if you ain't in the scriptures.
Yeah. And it's so good. And like something I want to encourage you with is like, it's so amazing your dedication as it should be to the word, because with that, then going to your reputation part, it just mind blowing. Like you're able to give a clear picture and a proper representation of the Lord's reputation to your kids.
Facts.
Not only displaying that, but then articulating that,
Facts.
ensuring that any sort of misconceptions or any sort of like distortions that they're told from like our culture or friends or like whatever can be protected. Because then as well, something that like you sharing that protects, which kind of goes towards like the birthright part that you're talking about. Because the idea that the Lord gave me as far as like the birthright goes for like modern times is our word legacy. Like in you articulating that character of the Lord to your kids, they're able to protect and continue on the legacy that you're building. And it's something like with kids who grow up without a father in the home, like it can be difficult because like they don't really know like their father's legacy or anything like that. So they have to build a new one.
And even if not legacy, just the idea of your legacy. What's the greatest legacy you can leave behind? What's the greatest thing that your child can say you left them with? What, $1 billion? Nah. It's the God that my father served.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like that's like even now, I have a daughter, she's 8, but every Saturday, bro, we sit down and we go through the commandments. Right now it's the 10 commandments. And at nighttime when she goes to bed and I'm reading her stories, bro, I'm reading her stories of Jonah.
Amen.
Because that's short books, right? So we read Jonah, read about Jacob and Esau. You know what I mean? One of her favorites probably Samson. Thanks a lot, Samson.
Oh, strong Samson.
Yeah. Or Jonah, either one. But yeah, we go through, so it's like, that's what I see. And it's true what you're saying, because that's what I didn't get from my dad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so decisions that I made, were based on what I believe was right, and not so much as what a higher power or a deity, a God, what he says is right. You know what I mean? Like, thou shalt not murder. Okay, murder is wrong, but why is it wrong? Because the government says it's wrong. So let me murder somebody without getting caught. Let me do it the best. You know what I'm saying? But it's different when it's like, when you're taught you should not murder because the Most High said not to murder. Your creator said not to murder. So those words go way further. So with my daughter, rather than when I'm teaching her not to steal, I don't teach her you shouldn't steal because daddy say so.
Or because you'll go to jail.
Like, you know what I'm saying?
That's not why.
No, you shouldn't steal because Yahweh said not to steal.
Yeah.
You know
and it's
what I mean?
so good to like raise the value and the reverence for like his word, because like that's something that I think is kind of screwed up in some people's minds, is like go to marriage, for example.
Yeah.
It's something like, why do some people maybe in the church think that like homosexual marriage is okay? Is because they think it's just like a contract with United States of America, or the state of Texas or Tennessee. But whenever it's like the Lord created marriage, and it's something that he defines it, his word defines it, not any state or anything like that. And so, and you can apply that to murder, stealing,
anything,
whatever.
Yeah. Anything.
And so it's so good to get that ingrained from a young age. But yeah, I think like that, like just everything you talked about can really bring encouragement to whether it's like teens who are growing up in a single parent
Yeah.
household and them being able to realize like, hey, even though like this isn't how the Lord intended it, he could still work through
Right.
that situation, whether it's the mom or the dad who's like overseeing you right now. And then as well, like that you can carry on a new
Yeah.
legacy and
Yeah.
build a new one.
Real talk.
Because like you've done that very much with your family. And
Yeah. It's breaking the curse. That's the blessing of knowing the Lord. You know what I
yeah,
mean? And knowing his word. That's how you do it. You break the curse, you know, the curse of broken families, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Dysfunctional being, or even just the idea of how we think. You know what I'm saying? Well,
yeah.
because one thing I've learned is that thinking is an art. Somebody, you know, you should thinking. That's
Ooh,
why people go to college. They go to college to be trained on how to
how
think
to think.
about everything they learned in grade school.
Yeah.
So it's an art. So if you're not taught how to think, if you don't know how to think, you're jacked up.
Dang. Yeah. Because, and we can maybe have a side conversation on how good the universities are doing of that. But
But
like,
hey, it's an art,
it's
right?
true.
But the idea of, so the same way with the scriptures. That's what the scripture does. The scripture teaches us how to think like God. That's why there's so much emphasis on loving the Lord with your mind, loving the Lord with your whole being,
Dang.
your soul, right? Your decision making.
That's,
And so you get it. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. You
yeah.
know what I'm saying? It's so much. It's everything lies on the thinking part. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So once you learn how to think, and you start learning how to think about God and how to think about His Word, how to think about your life. Those things come together, and that's where the blessings come in. That's how you break the curse.
Yeah. Because then you're able to understand the implications as well.
Yeah. So then your family, your legacy changes
Yeah.
from my father and his father. That the legacy that he left him was trash, and my great great grandfather legacy he left him was bad. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it's like when it get to me, it did it ruin my life? Yeah, certain chapters of my life. You know what I mean? But the Lord has come in and graciously kind of turn those pages and allow me to write a new story.
Yeah.
So now when my daughter starts to write, the legacy of that, now it's going in a completely different direction than how it was when I first started writing my life story. You know what I mean? Because I've changed the thinking process in my house. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Now we don't think about, no, we're not thinking about our own selves and our own lives and thinking about the world through our own eyes. We're thinking about the world through the laws and the word of Yahweh. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
And that's something that like we kind of want to do with like perspectives with like the organization as a whole is like we want to provide these, we kind of sum it up in three categories, like these cultural, travel, and service opportunities
Yeah,
so that people can come to a fuller perspective
that's dope.
of the world.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
we don't normally like explicitly say it, we implicitly hope it is like we hope that they come to like a more a perspective that represents like a more biblical worldview,
yeah, that's dope.
because we really think like the Lord can work through those three things specifically
Most definitely.
to highlight parts of his character and being able to just grow from there.
Most definitely.
But that's so good, man. And so kind of going from that season, like you're like that 17 to 20 season
Yeah.
where the Lord was just graciously walking you through. So what is kind of those next years of life look like? Like when do you start to get involved with music? Kind of like what's that look like?
So I became a Christian, and because I was a gangbanger, I had no friends.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like when I first became a Christian, I didn't tell anybody I was a Christian. I was kind of like nervous about it. Like, what they
Yeah.
gonna say? Would there be any, repercussions for that? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, if I tell them, so I tried with one of my OGs who was a cousin of mine, older than me. He was locked up, and I wrote him a letter and told him I was a Christian, and he like congratulated me. He was like, "Man,
Wow.
that's good." So the reception that I got from him kind of gave me the confidence of stepping out and just start letting people know. And so one day, well, he ended up getting out, and still I haven't made this announcement yet to the set or to the gang or whatever. But then he got out, and then there was like, somebody get out of jail. It's like, we're gonna barbecue and do all this,
Yeah.
So he gets out. So we're at somebody's house, and it's like 40 people outside, right? And we're
Yeah.
all in like this circle in the yard and we're talking about, what we're gonna get to drink and what we're gonna get to smoke and what, you know what I mean? And so when it got to me, and people know at this time I was going to church, you know what I mean? So when it got to me, they asked me what I was gonna drink, and I was like, I don't drink no more. And then it was like, well, oh yeah, Tone, he just smoked. And I was like, nah, I'm good. I don't smoke neither. So somebody was like, oh, what you think, you a Christian? And so I was like, yeah, I am. And then he got real quiet and everybody stared at me. And so he asked me, he was like, well, if you're a Christian, then what you hanging with us for? And so I was like, man, y'all my brothers.
Dang.
It's like, y'all my family. Like, I joined Crips when I was 12. I had been knowing probably 96% of the people who was in that yard, I had been knowing them since I was 12. Some of them before. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's like, that's what I knew. This is my family. So I'm thinking I could be a Christian and still hang. But in that moment, that was the first time I had the thought of maybe I'm not supposed to hang with them. Because it was never a question of should I hang with them. It was always the question of should I let them know that I'm a Christian.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So then at that moment, I realized he was right. Like I shouldn't be out here. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's like the Lord took me and just hid me for like a year.
Yeah.
And all I did, because I had a job, because I used to sell drugs. I stopped selling drugs. I got a job. So I would work, come home, eat, read the Bible, go to sleep, wake up, read the Bible, go to work, come home, take a bath, eat, read the Bible, go to sleep, wake up, read the Bible, go to work. It was the same routine every day for like a year, right?
Good.
And then I would go like to Walmart and places like that. I was never seeing none of my friends or nobody. Then one day I went to the homecoming game and had a different color on. Everybody's like, oh, that's when I made like the announcement. But for that year, that's where I learned it. God gave me a foundation of the scriptures.
Yeah.
And so I used to rap before I became a Christian, but it was more just freestyling, in the neighborhood, at school, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I thought I had never heard a Christian rap. I never heard of a Christian who raps. I never heard of that in my life, right? So I thought, because I was told, when I came into the church and got saved, I was told, you're not supposed to listen to rap music. You're not supposed to listen to R&B music. You're not supposed to listen to the radio. You're not supposed, unless it's gospel. You're not supposed to listen to anything unless it glorifies God. You know what I mean? So I had to throw away all my CDs and all my, And so, so I stopped rapping and I started writing poems about things I would read in the Bible. Right.
Really?
So I would just write these poems because I was learning so much.
Yeah.
Like I said, I never read the Bible. When I read the book of Revelation was the first time I had ever read the Bible.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And I'm sure with like not having that friend group around, like you needed some sort of outlet.
Oh, most definitely.
The poems probably served as that.
Most definitely. It was a blessing in disguise. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it was like, now I'm saved now. I got the Holy Spirit now. So Galatians 5 don't sound dumb to me no more. You know what I mean? It's making sense now. You know, like, oh, that's what that meant.
There we go.
That's what that. Oh, I get it.
You don't eat that fruit. Okay,
you feel me? You feel me? So I'm reading Proverbs and Matthew and Luke and all the Gospels and epistles and I'm learning. Oh wow, Israel. Oh snap, mind blowing. Israel is named Israel because of a man named Jacob, got his name changed to Israel. He had 12 sons.
Whoa.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, it was blowing my mind, right? So I would write these poems about the things I was learning because they were so new to me and so interesting to me. And after a while, it became melodic. You know what I mean? And then, in my own little closet, I would write these raps, and it's weird because it felt forbidden. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I would write them and it would be about Jesus and it would be about God and it would be about people, but from the lens of the scripture, it would be about my life and what I've been through. You know what I mean? So finally I got the courage to just start rapping it in front of my family. None of my family was Christian at the time, mind you.
Okay.
And I lived in the house, let me see, my grandma, my mom, she ended up getting married. So her husband, I have 4 siblings, a niece, and a little cousin. We all lived in a 2-bedroom house.
Dang.
1, 2, 2 bedroom, 3. One, two, three, 3-bedroom house. You know, and I slept on the floor and the couch for like most of my life. You know what I mean? So it was a thing where it was like I built up the courage to rap to them. You know, because it was like, oh, you're a Christian, you ain't supposed to rap. That was a sentiment to everybody.
Yeah.
You know, because they weren't nice to me, you know, after I became a Christian. Not at all. You know what I'm saying? So but you know, I tried it out and it was, oh yeah, that's good. That's good. So in my head, I remember leaving praying and saying, like, God, I could do something with this. Because I thought it was something new. You know what I'm saying? Like, I could change the world with this. You know, nobody's never a Christian rap, these kind of lyrics, you know, about, you know, Ephesians and this and that, you know what I'm saying? And so probably about a week later, I met a guy named Jonathan Daniel. He went by Eyebrows. And he was at this function, this pastor family day or something like that. Yeah. And he was there and he was rapping. Okay. You know what I mean? And I'm like, oh snap, he rapping. Like rapping. So I guess it ain't a sin to rap. You know what I mean? So and I thought I thought me and him was the only two people who knew you could rap. Yeah. You know? And so when I, you know, talked to him and he put me on and started telling me about, you know, Cross Movement, Lecrae, and all these different other rappers.
Who was the first CHH artist you listened to? Do you remember?
The first CHH artist. Now, it'd probably be somebody people I ain't never. This dude named DCP. When it was this Christian rap, like because it was the CD he gave me. Dude named DCP went by Demon. It was an acronym for Demon Cat Pillar. You know what I'm saying? And so he was signed to Grape Tree. Okay, I think it was Grape Tree. All right. Records. They were like the no limit of Christian rap. They like had like a 1,000 artists, you know what I mean? And so, but then oh my gosh, T-Bone. I remember listening to T-Bone.
I just listened to T-Bone last night for the first time.
For real?
Yes, his T-Bone song Pentecostal Horse Race. Or it's more of a skit. That might be the funniest thing I've ever heard. Like that's on par with Words Played and Andy and their jokes. But all right, DCP. I'm gonna have to check him out.
T-Bone, and then Lil Rascal.
Yeah.
I remember Lil Rascal. And then somebody gave me a Cross Movement record.
There we go.
I think Human Emergency. What was the name? Was the name of the album? Yeah. Or whatever. I remember listening to it, but not understanding a whole lot of what they was talking about. Yeah. You know, it was a lot of scholarship, right? Yeah. So at the time, I'm a babe. You know what I mean? I'm barely memorizing John 3:16 at the time. You know what I'm saying?
You don't know Christology or
what?
Any of that.
What? I don't know about certain words. I had just learned salvation, bro. I had never heard of that word until I became a Christian. Dang. Seriously, atonement. Never heard of that word ever in my life. I'm in the hood. Nobody's in the hood talking about atonements. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like
true that.
So, but then,
so you find the music. Friend gives you the CD.
Yeah, he gave me all of CDs. And then there was Real Talk Lecrae CD. Yeah, Real Talk was in there or whatever. And then, so as far as rapping, I ended up becoming a part of a group in Camden where, because, you know, in Camden where I'm from, you know, it's especially when I was growing up, it was pretty rough, you know what I mean? And so there weren't a lot of young Christians who were black males. Yeah. You know, not like as far as like, now I knew people who went to church, you know what I'm saying? And there was some people I didn't even know went to church until I started going to church. Yeah. Like, oh, snap, you go? I didn't know you were. You go to church, you know? But for the most part, as far as like people that were like unashamed, you know, if you will, of their faith, and really like talked about their faith and talked about God and talked about Jesus, and like there was nobody under 18 doing that. There was nobody under 21. Yeah. There's nobody under 22 that I can recall. I can't remember meeting somebody who was like 24 or 25 that was like actively on fire for God. You know what I mean? And for the gospel. I don't remember meeting people like that. So I was at this time, I'm 21, 22. And bro, it was just I was like a weirdo. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But people knew me from my past because I had a reputation, you know. So people would talk to me and ask me questions about the Bible, and I would answer. And that kind of built my reputation with people. Where it was like, oh snap, because I read so much and a lot of stuff. Now I look back on, was like I was kind of off on that, but I was able to give people answers that people had questions to, you know,
Yeah.
that nobody else would answer for them. And so I had a cousin named Tyrone. He was a Crip too. He ended up becoming a Christian. And then my homeboy D West, I knew him from high school. He was older than me or whatever, but they had a rap clique, and I tried to be in their rap clique when I was
Okay.
a sophomore. You know what I'm saying? He was a
Yeah.
senior. Um, but yeah, so we all kind of came together. And my homeboy Dunn, he was old. He was older than all of us.
Yeah.
But he was a Christian, and so we formed this group. We called ourselves Infinite Minds, right?
Okay.
And so we would rap and go around Camden, different churches, because it was new. Nobody never heard of Christian rap in Camden.
Yeah.
You know, like none of like you had to be you had to be a real Christian to know about Christian rap in Camden at the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so yeah, so started doing that, and then some unfortunate happened. The guy, one of the guys in the group, Dunn, their house was like because we did community. We didn't know we was doing community, but we did community, right? Well, you know, we all gathered at one place and just live with each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just, you know, come and, you know, eat and talk about the Bible and play video games and rap and, you know, different stuff, you know. So his house was the headquarters for that, you know, because he had a wife and I think 3 kids at the
Yeah.
time. And but he ended up killing his wife. You know what I mean?
Same.
And so that really, 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 really shook the core of a lot of us, you know, if not all of us. You know what I'm saying? Because we
Yeah.
at the time we all were young, around the same age, you know, 22, 21, 22. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? We're all young. And when he did that, it was just like we didn't know how to respond to that. Like, what do we do? Do we, you know, still love him? Do we, you know, stay together as a group? And then you had people who, because his wife was cousins to a lot of the
Yeah.
females, you know
Support
what I
that
mean?
family. Yeah.
So it's like they wanted, you know, we came from the streets, you know, so the way we viewed the scriptures, you know, was through that same lens. So when it came to the idea of loyalty, you know, we believed, oh, nah, you don't abandon a brother because they, even if they did something that harsh, that
Yeah.
hard, that bad, you know what I mean? It's like, nah, we're not gonna abandon him. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is our brother. We still love him. And then you had a side of believers who were in our church that felt like, nah, you're not supposed to. He ain't no Christian. He would do that. He's not a Christian. No, it was like, nah, we loved both of them. You know, we didn't have a we love her because of him or we love him because of her. It's like, no,
Yeah.
we love them both as a package, the whole family. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it was a thing where it was like it drove kind of a wedge, you know, in the church, and it was challenging to my faith because I'm a new Christian. You know what I'm saying? I've
Yeah.
only been I haven't been saved long, you know. So it's like challenging trying to navigate that and learn how to be. You know what I'm saying? Like, well, how to be in this situation, how to be a Christian, how to be loving. What does that all mean? What does, you know, family mean? What does this mean? What is, you know,
What is forgiveness? Like,
what
what
is
is mercy
forgiveness?
versus
Exactly,
justice mean? Like,
exactly.
yeah.
We had to grow up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we had to grow up, and it was, you know, we lost friendships with some people. You know what I'm saying, over that, you know, because they looked at us, you know, some of us as uh not being true to the scriptures because of our quote unquote love
Yeah.
for him still, you know what I mean? And it was, you know, it was difficult to deal with. But so a couple of them, you know, they stopped rapping, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Dunn, he went to jail, you know, he went to prison. I think he got like something like 33 years.
Dang.
D West, he went to the army. And then my cousin, Tyrone, we called him Bush, But he went to barber school, got his barber license, started cutting, and I was the only one who went forward with music.
Rap, yeah.
And then I moved to Tennessee. Got married. My wife, she ended up going to Iraq. And when she went to Iraq, I moved to Tennessee because I'm like, well, she's gonna be there for a year. I might as well just see what's out there. You know what I mean? Build on new grounds. So I moved to Tennessee. I met a lot of people. I ended up meeting Doc Watson.
Yeah.
When I met Doc Watson, he was doing mixtapes.
Cool.
Right. And then we would have these conversations. And I remember him telling me he was a Christian. And then that was during the time where, that was the whole, like, if you're a Christian, you're supposed to be doing Christian music. That was kind of the ideology, you know what I mean? So I was having a conversation with him, like, but it wasn't, you're supposed to, it was a reasoning of why not? Why not make music for God? That's who you live for. You know what I mean? Like, why not make music that glorifies him and lift him up? You know what I mean? So he took a chance on that. You know what I mean? And he went from just making mixtapes for clubs to making mixtapes for Christians. You know what I mean? He formed this group called Click Righteous. I was a part of that whole conglomerate. You know what I mean? It was like a compilation with a lot of different rappers. You know what I'm saying? So through him, I met Derek.
Yeah,
I was recording. Yeah, I was recording with a person before I was recording with Shock, Becca Shay's husband. I don't know if you know Becca Shay.
Becca, that sounds familiar.
Yeah, she's amazing. She's amazing. She's an amazing songstress. But her husband used to record me. And then we stopped recording, stopped working together.
Yeah.
And then I needed a place to record. Because during the time I was like, man, I'm done with music. I don't want to do music no more, blah, blah, this and that.
Yeah.
And then one day I was like, I want to do music. Well, I just couldn't get away from it, So I was like, I need a place to record. I was talking to Doc, man, I need a place to record. Blah, blah. And then he was like, man, record at my man's Pro, because that was his name at the time, Pro.
At the time.
Record at my man's Pro. So I was like, how you think he'll record me? Yeah, he'll record you. Just hit him up. And he shot me his number. I hit him up, like, yo, looking for some studio time, invited me over. I went over, I recorded a whole album over there. And then at the time, he was he's not rocking with Christian rap.
Yeah.
Because he didn't like the atmosphere of when he would go around Christian rappers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He didn't like the attitude of them. You know what I'm saying? And then they was dragging him on the Christian rap sites, like the Rapzilla and
stuff
Holy
like that.
Hip Hop, and you know what I'm saying? They was dragging him because he wasn't talking about Jesus like that. You know what I mean? He was just, and he always said, what he called what he did real hop. That's what he would always tell me. I do real hop, right?
Okay.
And so he would talk about, how nice he was. You know what I'm saying? He would talk about, shining on people and, out rapping people. That was just, that was his style, So we would have talks in the studio, when I would record. And it was the same thing with him. Like, yo, you live for the Lord. Why not make music that glorify him? Why not? It was never judgment with me. You know what I mean? Because I didn't believe like that. You know what I'm saying? I came from gang. And I still, some of it is there, but I had a gang mentality. You know what I mean? So I believed in hey, if you claim to be this, you know what I'm saying, then this should follow. You know what I'm saying? Or why not make this follow? If you say you're a gangster, why not go do a drive-by? You know what I mean? So,
and then just wondering, because like with your experience with like your gang brothers basically telling you like, then why are you hanging around here? Maybe the Lord, and let me know if this is accurate or not, like the Lord built like such a grace in you in that time that you were able to be a little slow with Derek in terms of like encouraging him.
That's what it was. It was encouragement. It was me encouraging him. It wasn't even so much as, I wouldn't say a slowness, you know what I mean, with him, but having to be slow, because it was no pressure.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that was nothing. He didn't owe me anything, and I didn't owe him nothing.
Dang.
You know what I'm saying?
So good.
So it was just conversations. I would go over and record. Almost every day I would go over. Sometimes I would just go over and play 2K. He was just cool, right? So I would just go over and we just hang, and then we would record, and I record, and while we sit down, I would ask him, like, why don't you talk about God in your music? Because he would see that. He would see the stuff that was online. I would see the stuff that was online, right? So we would talk about that. He would express his feelings about that. And, you know, I thought it was wrong the way people was dragging him, and I thought it was bad, you know, but, you know, I didn't feed into it like that. I didn't, man, they wrong. I didn't say that to him. I didn't, you know, try to make him feel. My whole goal was that's with anybody. My whole goal, when people, you know, are feeling, you know, down, you know, my whole thing is to come in and try to lift you up and say something that's going to encourage. I'm an exhorter, you know what I mean?
Amen.
And so that's what I did. I just exhorted him and encouraged him. Was like, and my question, like when he was talking, say why he don't do it, you know, I would be like, well, why not do it? What's wrong with talking about God? Because I talked about God. You know what I mean? So it was the thing was like, I didn't talk about God out of I didn't feel like like I'm talking about God because, you know, I'm trying to make some money or
Or I want
this.
to forget about my situation or
Right,
whatever.
or he
Yeah.
got me in the headlock and my face up to the mic and talk about God. I didn't
Yeah.
feel like my arm was being twisted to talk about God. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? I was just excited about my life and my walk with God, and I loved him. And through and that's what rap is. It's expression.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? And that's what I expressed. I just because not every song talked about Christ. And the songs talked about things I was passionate about, and that's the
Yeah.
conversation I used to have with Derek, where it was like, "Yo, you know, talk about what you're passionate about." You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But talk about it from a perspective of a God worldview. You know what I'm saying? Talk about it from a perspective of your love for God. You're passionate about God. You love God, and we're passionate. I'm passionate about the hood. You know, so I talk about the hood from a God point of view.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Rather than being in the hood living it, I'm talking about it from being outside, being delivered from it. And this is how I got delivered. This is who delivered me. And bringing awareness to other people of saying these problems are there. This is the problem here. This is going on here. So I paint those pictures for people. You know what I mean? And so that was my thing. But yeah, Derek, me and him, we clicked up and started doing music together.
What year was that?
That year was 2000. I want to say 8.
Solid.
Yeah, like 2008. I want to say.
There we go.
But and then he started writing, and then I would go over. He would write something and be like, "Yo, what you think about this?" And then he would spit some, and it'd be talking about God. I'm like, "Yo, that's dope."
There we go.
You know what I'm saying? That's dope.
Yeah.
So, you know, and then he ended up getting married, and then his wife lived in Memphis.
Okay.
Right. Well, his wife went to school in Memphis. Right.
Mm-hmm.
She was in the medical program. Now I think it was a medical program.
Sweet.
But when he got married, he had to go down. And during this time, I had met BJ Thompson.
Yeah.
Or whatever. You know, he's the guy who discipled Lecrae.
Yeah.
Right. So I had met him, and me and him talked a lot. You know, and so, you know, he was in Memphis. He lived in Memphis. And, you know, and they had a community there, him, Lecrae, and all them, right?
Yep.
And so I would drive down to Memphis and get it in with him and then drive back home. You know, I would go down like for a weekend. And then like one time we took a trip to Texas, me and him drove to Dallas, like road trip type, you know what I'm saying? So when I learned that Derek was moving to Memphis, I was like, yo, you should holler at my dude BJ. You know what I mean? And so he was like, well, bet. So then come to find out, his wife, Derek's wife, they had just married, was already in a study group with BJ's wife.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like when he went, it was already set up even before I even said anything. You know what I mean? So it's not something I take credit for, can take credit for. It was the Lord, you know what I mean? And so he went down there and he got in community with them, and then, you know, he started to build a reputation with them, and, you know, they started to see his character and things like that, and then they wanted to sign him to a deal. Then he started Reflection Music Group, him and Doc they started that together.
Yeah,
right?
Was that 2014?
No, they started that. I want to say they started Reflection Music Group 2010, because I want to say 2009. I think it was 2009. Derek put out the Redemption album.
Yeah, sounds
I want
about
to say
right.
2009.
Yeah,
2009, 10, something like that. But that was, I think that was the first album released on Reflection Music Group. I want to say.
Okay.
I could be wrong though, but I know me, Chad, and Kenan signed our contracts around the same time, and that was 2010, 11-ish.
Sweet.
I want to say.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's when around the time when I did Mic Check, I want to say.
Yeah.
The first time I did Mic Check.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I signed to,
Sweet.
and Derek, they called me, .com was like, yo, we're official. Want to know if you're signed. At first I was like, nah, I'm good. And because I respected them so much. And I had already seen, I hadn't been doing music for a long time, but I had already seen, I had been on tour. I went on tour with 7 Day Slumber.
Yep.
I had did like some opening up for like Cutlass and Disciple.
Yep.
I had opened shows for Cray at the time. This is before, they was like out of this world. It was kind of, just on the rise, and people would just book us out together, right?
Yep.
And so I would do open for them, open for Tadashi, Trip Lee, So it was like I had seen enough behind the scenes stuff where I saw where music caused wedges between people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, I had been through some situations during that time where, I went in because like I said, I'm from the hood, I'm from the streets. So I went in thinking, if I was ready to die for somebody over some colors. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And I had friends who we felt the same way, right? It was mutual.
Yep.
And so my expectation of Christianity was, if we was a family as a Crip, surely God's gang is way tighter than the Crip family.
Yep.
You know what I mean? That's how I viewed it, and we had our issues, we had a little problems and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, if somebody come through here shooting, bro, we ride,
Exactly.
And so as a Christian, that was my mentality, right? So then when I started doing music, I was trained to think of music as a ministry. You know what I'm saying? That's how I viewed it. Like, music is ministry. So I would go do shows for free. Why? Because I'm doing this for God. I ain't doing this for money. That was my mentality, So I didn't have any good business sense. You know what I mean? So it was like, in the wrong hands of certain people who, knew how to get around and work around and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like, it was times where I ended up in situations where, I ended up on the short side, got the short end of the stick. You know what I mean? And so after a while, starting to realize that, people will use you and people would do certain things and don't value or don't honor the friendship, claim to be your friend with ulterior motives, what I'm saying? Those motives is to use and to misuse you, and stuff like that. I felt like that was that thing when I told you I was like, I'm done with music, right? And so that was the thing that made me feel like, that's not for me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can't, that's not for me, because I was still rough around the edges at the time, I'm fairly new Christian. Like, man, I'm messing around and fight somebody. You know what I'm saying? Get out of character, So so when Doc asked me that, I told him nah. And the reason was because of and I told him that. I was like, man, I just feel like, you're my friend. And I would hate to not have a friendship over some music stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so he asked me a couple times, and then Derek, he asked me, and because I guess Doc had told him, and I told him, it was like, nah, bro, I can't do it. And then he was like, man, just think about it. And then, I was like, I think about it. And I called BJ. I remember me and him talk. And then I brought that up to him. And I was like, Derek and them started a label, because he was still signed to Reach at the time, right? So I was like, Derek, he started a label. He asked me to sign. He was like, well, what you say? I was like, I said, nah. So BJ was kind of like, why not? And I told him, and he was like, well, I mean, y'all got the same theology, y'all living close to each other. Y'all already friends.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, why wouldn't it work? And I didn't think about that, because I was like, man, the people who I felt like had did me in and got over on me was people I had just met. I didn't know them from Adam, right? I didn't have relationships with them like that. It was just music relationships. It was just business relationships. And like, I wasn't a good businessman.
And like the validity of your loyalty to like Derek and Doc and all them at that point had been proven. Because like you, I mean, obviously like you're a loyal person, you're a trusting person. And so, because I'm kind of the same way.
Yeah.
Where I can trust to a default where I've gotten hurt in the past, like whether it was business stuff, whether it was relationships, friendships, whatever. And so after you kind of wake up to the fact of like, hey, some people are opportunists. Or whatever, it's like you then are just, you lose that naivety.
Yeah.
To that.
And it's a degree of paranoia.
Yeah.
It creates a degree of paranoia.
Yeah. But then it's so good that like the Lord worked out the timing and everything correct.
Yeah.
To where by then, like they had proved themselves loyal and trustworthy.
Right.
So you're able to go sign with them. Whatnot. But that's crazy because because that was why I didn't think that the label started up till like 2014 because I knew Derek was signed with Reach.
Yep.
Up until
and people like he would release music, right? And then how on the video and stuff it would have Reflection Music Group, right? And people would see people in the comments on YouTube like, who is Reflection Music Group? What is going on? He signed a Reflection Music Group? When did the Reflection Music? Because nobody knew it much about Reflection Music Group. They just knew he was signed to Reach, So when they would see Reflection Music Group, it was like, well, and at the time he was still signed to Reach, but when he would do stuff with Reflection, it would be under the banner of Reflection. So when he would do was featured on a song, one of us would do or something, right? And the song get put out, it would get put out under Reflection Music Group, and he would be on there. So they're like, yo, who is he signed to Reflection Music Group? Blah blah. There's no Reach Records down there. What's going on? This and that. So but he was always he's co-owner. You know what I'm saying? Yep. He's a half owner of Reflection Music Group. He's been there from the jump. He just at the time he was signed to Reach, and then he was doing what he was doing at Reach and touring with them, and we was holding it down for Reflection Music Group, trying to get the label off the ground.
Yeah, and it's so good for him to have that like business savvy, to have that plan of just like why not get it started up. And then just kind of build. And so whenever he was done with his Reach contract, he could just go
home. You just go home.
Yeah, and it's cool because like what you were talking about with Doc just being like, hey, like just hit up Derek, just like go pull up one day. Like whenever we were up here in November, like I mean Kirby, my friend who recorded with him that day, like she had hit him up before then, let him know we were heading up, but like literally just pulled up. Like, well, he said like, yeah, we could record in my studio.
Right.
So we thought we were going to some building or whatnot. And then we pull up and it's his house. We're just
at his crib.
Recording at his house? What? And then we were able to meet his wife and his kids, which is Nolan
and Zane.
And Zane, yeah. Oh,
my little homies right there.
Shout out Pizza Man. You don't get that reference yet. I'll show you later on. It's so good. But yeah, man, Derek's just that kind of dude. Like, he's so legit. And even
he's a good dude, man.
Yeah, being able to spend a little bit of time with him.
Doc too. They're good people.
They're legit. People. And then it's cool because whenever I encountered your music a little bit with Mic Check, and then the one that really hit me was Camden. Just like that, just that whole album, because
that's my baby.
I grew up in a affluent area.
Yeah,
there's like kind of a wealthy suburb in Dallas.
Lucky.
Very, dude. Lord
no,
bless
my wife, my daughter says that. Lucky.
Yes. And so for me, like, I was gracious for my parents from a young age, not sheltering me.
Yeah.
Because like we grew up in a nice place, but I mean, we would go down to the homeless shelter called the Slab on the weekly or on the monthly.
The Slab.
And then it was sweet, man. And then as well, I mean, I'd go on mission trips every summer since I was 8.
Oh, probably. Wow.
And so we would be going, and those were all domestic mission trips before I graduated high school.
Yeah.
We would go we went over to like help with like the Katrina stuff, down to like South Texas, up to Oklahoma, Missouri, all over the place. And so I was able to see like how
different
things are for people. And of course, me being a kid, I'd still kind of get caught up in like, like little problems, whatnot. Yeah. But for a little bit, it'd be able to provide perspective. And from there, it was something that I think has had an influence on me. But it was that album, Camden, was something like, it really hit me. And you just kind of talking a lot about your experience in your hometown.
Yeah.
Growing up. And then I think what you were talking about with your friend.
Ghost. Talking about Ghost?
Yes.
Yeah, like well, I told that story.
Dude, totally random. I don't know if you're going to remember this. Do you remember where we first met by chance? Probably.
In Austin.
So we met a couple times before then. Because that was the first time we talked for like a significant amount of time at South by Southwest. So the time before then we met was in Waco at Derek's Empire Tour. It was you, Cannon, and then some others. And at the end, y'all were just like taking pictures with everyone and whatnot. And
was it like
was it
outside?
Yeah, outside.
Yeah, they had the stage set up.
Yeah.
It was set up. It was back of a coffee shop.
Yes.
Yeah,
we having
yeah.
a CHH concert
Yeah.
in the middle of a like coffee shop. Like, what is this?
I remember that.
But then, before then, was with it was in Dallas.
Okay.
It was with Thizzle. And
Yeah. I remember.
Jason.
I remember meeting you that night though.
It was real quick, but we just snapped a picture.
It was me, Thizzle, Jason, and Sean Johnson.
Yes. And I was wearing, it was silly. I was wearing a green Mavs jersey. It was a Jerry Stackhouse jersey. Silly. But
hey, Jerry Stackhouse is a legend. Shout out to Jerry Stackhouse.
For real. But in the middle of the concert, or at the tail end, you were going to be playing your last song and you asked the crowd, like, hey, what do y'all want to hear? Some kid in the crowd just yells out, play Ghost. And you're like, fam, like, nah.
Oh, yeah.
I can't bring down the mood like that.
Yeah.
Like, that's serious, bro. Don't joke at that.
Yeah.
But we were all just like, what in the world?
Yeah. I performed that song once.
Yeah.
Ever.
And that was enough, because that's a personal thing for you, man.
And it was a moment. It was just like, I did that to raise awareness to abuse. This is before the whole Me Too movement and stuff like that. So I was like, nah, I want to say something that's, is going to be impactful, but that's important, that I think is important to me. You know what I mean? That was abuse toward women, So yeah.
Yeah, man, for real. But so
yeah, I remember that night. I remember parts of that night. Yeah, I remember parts of that night.
It was crazy. That was such a fun concert, because there was only maybe like 100 people there. It was because it was a small church,
right?
And so it was a perfect.
That was cool. It was packed out to me in my eyes. You know what I'm saying? So I'm used to doing. Man, I had got so used to doing shows with 15 people, man. You know what I'm saying? Like I've always had, like I said, man, I've always had a mentality of music as ministry, a ministry outlet to me. You know what I'm saying? So I've done shows where literally there was like 3 people there, and I still did a whole full set and performed that mug like it was 1,000 people in there. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's just my mentality, you know what I mean? And I didn't even get paid for that show, So, but Camden was that was my Magna Carta to me. I wouldn't call it Magna Carta. That was my reasonable doubt.
Okay,
there we go. That was my reasonable doubt. Dude. I think that was my introduction, because I had did a couple albums before that. You know, but then that one was the one, because people didn't know, and it's funny because I say, and at the time I just believe the Spirit dropped it in me, and my heart was like, people's lives are like books. You know what I mean? Like your life is a book. And so what I've learned is, because I moved away from home later, like I was an adult when I moved away from home. I didn't move away as a child. You know what I'm saying? So I had to go away and find new roots, new grounds to grow roots in.
Yeah.
And the way people would deal with me, it was difficult for me, because sometimes like people deal with people from templates, right? So there's a certain way, especially as Christians, you're a Christian, and they're like, oh, we deal with you a certain way because you're a Christian.
Put you in a box.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it a box. I think it's more like, I think that's true. Don't get me wrong.
To an extent,
it's definitely true. I think it's more of like your life experiences creates your personality. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so for the most part, a lot of people I met had, they grew up in church. So they shared some of the same common personality traits. You know what I mean? So when they would deal with people, they would deal with people according to those personality traits. You know what I'm saying? But I viewed the world different. I grew up in the gang my whole life, just about. You know what I'm saying? My uncle was killed literally he's the one who initiated me. He was killed 7 days before my 13th birthday. Damn. You know what I'm saying? And so that was like that was the foundation of my quote unquote manhood, if you will. You know what I'm saying? I'm a preteen, about to be a teenager. And literally when I step into my teen years to start to learn who I am and what life is about, my best friend, he was like my brother. He was 17. I was 12, he was 17. We were both kids. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And he wasn't like some distant person. It's somebody I saw and talked to constantly.
On the regular, yeah.
And I looked up to him like he was a celebrity in my eyes. You know what I mean? He had girls liked him and guys respected him and he was smart, but he was still a street dude. And
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? So it was like in my eyes, like I idolized him. You know what I'm saying? And then my idol gets killed right before I become a teenager, 7 days before I become a teenager, which is we were supposed to celebrate together. You know what I mean? And so my life from that point forward was tough. My dad wasn't in the house, you know what I mean? Didn't have a relationship with him. My mom, me and her had a terrible relationship as I got older. You know what I mean? My siblings were terrified of me. My uncles and aunts and grandma didn't want to fool with me. I was the black sheep. You know what I mean? So when I became a Christian, that stuff didn't just go away. And the way I viewed the world and the way I viewed relationships, and it didn't go away. So when there was times of disloyalty and dishonesty, where people treated me with dishonesty and disloyalty, it cut different. You know what I'm saying? It just cut different because those were principles that I was raised on. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
When somebody call you family, for me, it means it's different. You know what I'm saying? It's not just like people say gang. Bro, that just means different for me, man. I just can't post with random people and call them gang. You know what I mean? It just means something different. I gotta really, really like you. You really, really gotta be my friend for me to call you gang.
For real.
You see what I'm saying? So it's like it was difficult to adjust. You know what I'm saying? So about the book part of your life being that, people when that happens, I realized people come in at the middle of the book. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I didn't talk a lot about where I came from. Yeah. There was times that I used to, like people ask, yo, what's your story? I remember that being a thing. What's your story? And then I would tell them, this is my story. And I remember being in a room with somebody that I respected, right? And they was a rapper, right?
Yeah.
And I remember them saying something to the effect of like, man, everybody always talking about their cousins getting shot and people gangbang, blah, 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 blah. Like, man, people need to stop talking about that stuff. They should start talking about what the Lord is doing in their life now. And, that made me feel like I was doing something wrong. You know what I mean? So I was like, wow, let me stop talking about that. So then when I started making music, it was just about the gospel. It was about being a Christian. It was about, you know what I'm saying? It was never about my past. And, I sprinkled a little bit here and there, you know what I'm saying? But it was never my story. So as I kept going and was living, I was having trouble adjusting to people and it was hard for me to build relationships with people.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because they had a different outlook on life than what I had. You know what I'm saying? And it was like, well, let me, Camden it wasn't a let me do that. It was just a byproduct of what I was feeling and going through at the time.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And that's what poured out, because I'm not gonna lie, I started missing where I was from. You know what I'm saying? Like I started feeling like I didn't fit. As a Christian, I started feeling like I didn't fit in with people. I started feeling like I didn't fit in with the circles. That's why you don't see me. I don't have a history of having rapper friends, Christian rap friends. You know what I'm saying? It's nothing I did it wasn't on purpose. It's just, I just never felt like I fit. You know what I'm saying? And then, we were just different. I would try to build with people and people had different, whether it was different agendas or they had different ideas of what relationships should be. You know what I'm saying? And, they just never lasted. You know what I'm saying? And it was nothing anybody did. It was just difference of personalities, So by the time I did Camden, that was one of those times I showed up at the studio, literally was like, I'm done with rap. And then I went to the studio to tell Derek that. I went to the studio to tell him I wanted out my contract and I didn't want to be. I didn't want to rap no more. I didn't like going to Flavor Fest because I go down there and this is how it feels when I'm around people. I don't like, nobody rock with me. Nobody invites me to Legacy, and I feel like I have something to say and something to offer people. And, I make good music and nobody rock with that. Nobody rock with me on just, he's dope. You know what I'm saying? I see other people is like, oh, they get respect for just being dope. You know what I'm saying? Though I'm like, I'm a dope rapper too.
Yeah.
Why nobody show me? I don't get that. And I know scripture and I'm solid. You know what I mean? So I started, I felt like that's that familiar black sheep feeling. You know what I'm saying? And when
Yeah.
I start feeling like that, I withdraw. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
And I don't know if it's just a protection mechanism or whatever it is, I withdraw. You know what I'm saying? And so when I went, his before I could even say anything, he was just talking about, music. And because I did the feature for him on Empire
Yep.
with me, him, and Tadashi.
With
Slow
slow
down.
down. Yeah.
Yeah. And so Chad was there that night, and that Chad was the one who, because I always, I felt like I couldn't talk about where I came from. You know what I'm saying? But during this time, I thought about it a lot. I thought about my past a lot and where I came from, and I was kind of missing the friendships and the relationships and the times that I had, and the nostalgia that's, you know what I'm saying, from that, right? And so Chad was like, bro, that's what you need to rap about that. Stay in that pocket and write about that stuff. That's people don't know
So
that
good.
about you. And Derek, you saying same thing. Like, yo, people don't know that about you. Like, talk about that stuff. Tell these stories. And literally the first song I wrote was Ghost.
Wow. That's amazing. And like and I just want to encourage you, because like that's such boldness and courage and vulnerability to be able to just like open up. And I mean, that's something, I mean, like I think a lot of artists talk about, like it's something that is like they almost can't stop, is like the creativity and just like the outpouring of talking about those experiences. But at the same time, like there is a courageous nature and boldness to that, and opening up, and especially things that are like deeply private, like growing up. And so, dude, just like for real, man, like I mean, I could just say from me and my listening to it, like it was something that really spoke to me a lot.
Man, praise God.
And some of those bangers in there fueled some great gym sessions as
well.
It
was a great album, man. And it was a great album. I think it was, it was to me, it's a classic in
for real
Christian hip hop history, if you ask me. I tell anybody that you grab any album off the shelf that you want to, from times past, times now, or time in the future. And I think that line by line and just the creativity of it, the features that were on there, you know what I mean?
For real.
The sound, the music, it was just a well-crafted album. I feel like it can stand on its own against any album you put it against. That's whether it's Christian or not. You know what I mean? That's how I feel about it,
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's that's one of them things, man.
Yeah, that's so good, man. But dope. And so kind of something that we wanted to talk about a little bit. You recently, I think it was in September, right?
The Israel trip?
Yeah. So like you
September,
had the
September 17th.
opportunity to go over with Israel Collective to Israel to have a little tour.
Shout out to the Israel Collective.
For real.
I love y'all. If y'all listen to me, I love you. Changed my life.
And so you had an opportunity just to go on a tour and a number of other things, because like my friend Kirby, she was able to go over with Derek the first time he went over. So she's told me about it. I have a couple other friends who've been with them, said just it changed their life. And so if you just want to open up a little bit about just briefly about just kind of what y'all were able to do over there, and then just like some of the big things that the Lord was walking you through while you're on the trip. Like,
oh my gosh,
that'd be awesome, man.
Oh my, let me see, bro. I could you say it briefly? I'm like,
yeah,
okay. Nah, man, it was amazing, man. It was during the time I was fading, bro. I'm not even gonna lie, bro. I was fading. I was struggling in my faith. You know what I mean? Like, to be honest, since I did Camden.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, since I did Camden and the world just changed. You know what I mean? And not because of Camden, you know what I mean? I'm just saying, period. Just after that album, during that period, the world changed. You know, that's when Trump became president.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The church that we was going to, we ended up having a lot of issues at the church, you know, behind a lot of that, you know, and which was weird. You know, it was strange. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A lot of it just began to change. Everything just began to change. A lot of relationships that we valued, my wife and I, The relationships we valued started to break apart. You know what I mean? People that we had a lot of confidence in and a lot of high regard and honor for. You know what I'm saying? Really, I mean, we just saw a different side of people, man.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that we handled every situation perfectly. You know what I mean?
No.
But personally, just during that time, it was like, man, it was just a lot of things that we wrestled with and dealt with that we never had
Yeah.
to wrestle with and deal with before. So it was challenging, but it made me question, like, that time made me question Christianity just in general.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it made me question, like, what is this? What
Yeah.
is this? What is this that I'm following? You know what I mean? What is this that I'm putting my hope in? Like, what is this? You
Is
know,
this
just
real? Like, is this
it
dependable?
was it was yeah,
Yeah.
it
All of
was
that.
terrible, man. It was terrible. And it just made me start having so many questions. And all to the point where I started to question, it's God. Like, oh, is God real? Is he real? Is that real? Like, you know, it had gotten so sour that I would tell my daughter, Bible stories, like when she was a lot younger then.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't read the Bible to her. I would just tell her the stories, from memory. And while I'm telling her these stories and telling her stories about Moses and splitting the Red Sea and Adam and Eve and talking to the serpent and even the crucifixion of Christ, um, it would just in my head would just sound like nonsense. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and I struggle with that, and I started to question. I started to question if I was saved. Do I believe? And that turned into, what do I believe?
Yeah.
And this is what I believe. Yeah, they was naked in the garden. They was talking to a serpent, and the serpent told her to eat blah blah blah. She ate it. What? In my head, what? That sounds ridiculous. That's how bad it had got for me,
Yeah.
right? And so Derek, later on, he hit me up, was like, yo, I got an opportunity to go back to Israel. Like, you want to go? Heck yeah, I want to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to go.
Because
You know
as
what I mean?
well, this was the first time you were ever out of the
First time
country
I
as
ever went
well.
out the country, bro. Ever. I've been to Canada, but
But it's Canada.
it's America, bro. You're not telling me. It's North America, all right?
For real.
So, but it's the first time ever flying over some waters to another continent. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And so I knew he went before, right? The year before.
Yeah.
Right. I knew he had went. And I remember him coming back and telling me about his experience. You know what I mean? And I remember being excited for him. You know what I'm saying? I remember thinking of how amazing it must be. And that's a place, since I became a Christian, that I dreamed of going. You know what I'm saying? I always wanted to go. And I couldn't tell you how many hours I spent. I'm a like, when I watch TV, I don't watch TV shows like that, right? My wife, she likes TV shows, so I watch a few TV shows with her. I'm not a TV show person. I watch documentaries.
Documentary, yeah.
You know what I mean? That's what I watch. And
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you how many Ancient Alien episodes I watched. Now I don't do the alien things, but I'm just interested in cultures, right? Different cultures, especially ancient cultures. You know what I'm saying? I couldn't tell you how many hours I spent just looking up just images of the Garden Tomb and Jericho, the Valley of Jericho.
Yeah.
Places, things that I've read in the Bible, and I'll, go online and look up that stuff. And, I remember, learning about the Dead Sea Scrolls and Qumran, and all those, and I just spent so many hours reading on that stuff, reading about Babylon, just reading that stuff. And,
Yeah.
I'm talking about hours, bro, hours, right?
Yeah.
And so when he presented that, it's like, there's no way. There's no way I'm gonna turn that down.
For real.
You know what I'm saying? And then he was like, yeah, and you and your wife. Ooh, what?
Yes.
What? Ah, come on, man. Yeah, of course. So we did that. We went. And man, when I say, and I've heard people say it was life changing, and when I say it was life changing, it was life changing. And the thing that made it so life changing for me was because it it brought the Bible to life. You know what I mean? In the sense of it made me realize the stuff that I was reading, like history, right? So you read like a history book, they're just stories.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Like if you've never been to Washington, D.C., and then you read about Washington, D.C., you know it's a real place, but it doesn't really, it doesn't
Hit the
prick at
same
you and
way.
pull you. Yeah, it don't hit the same way. You know what I'm saying? And that's how the Bible was. It was real to me. You know what I'm saying? I believed it, right? And then during this time, I was starting to kind of question and kind of fade on it. Like,
Yeah.
maybe these are just legends. You know what I'm saying? Maybe these are just
Yeah.
stories. And maybe, but it still was like, it was easy to feel that way. 'Cause I never seen any of this stuff, right? So even the people was like, the idea of the people being real, they were real human beings, but it wasn't like I'm seeing you and talking to you, like you're real. This is reality. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? It's not just a phone call.
Yeah.
But when I got there, it changed my life because it made me realize, like, bro, these people really lived, bro. Like Abraham was the thing that what did it, because I was there probably 2 days. I was there for 10 days, but
Yeah.
for 2 days, I was there, and it still didn't.
Feel.
We did Galilee. We did the Sea of Galilee. That was the first night. We went to Caesarea.
Yep.
Then we did, walked around. They told us about Herod and Pilate and all, and it was cool. Saw some ruins, and
Yep.
like some real stuff, right? And that was amazing. But it still hadn't hit me. Went to the Sea of Galilee.
Yep.
Still didn't hit me. I even went out late and just sat out on the sea on the little dock or whatever, and just it's like, wow, just trying to imagine that Jesus actually walked somewhere out here on this body of water, right? And it was real, but it still didn't hit me, right? And so we went to the Jordan the next day. People got baptized and stuff like that, and I didn't get baptized because I was like, I don't want to get baptized just for the sake of getting baptized in the Jordan. I was like, if something hits me, I'll get baptized, but I didn't want to get baptized just to say I got baptized in the Jordan. You know what I mean? I wanted it to mean something to me. And I respected everybody who got baptized. So right? Good. It was like, yo, that's dope. But me personally, that was just my personal preference. And so we did that, and I just looked and we took pictures, and I was like, man, it's the Jordan. Like, wow, it's crazy. This is the water Jesus was baptized in. That's dope. Still hadn't hit me, and we was driving, and I think we was Bethlehem, I want to say somewhere like going to Bethlehem or coming from or something. But I saw a sign, and the mug was like the tomb of Rachel, and it was like pointing in a direction, like when you drive into Dallas. Know how you get past Texarkana? There's like the Atlanta. There's Atlanta, Texas, right? You know what I'm saying? Like this odd sign, like Atlanta, Texas. That's weird, But I saw that, and I had just read how she was buried there. You know what I mean? Because Isaac, was on his way. I think he was on his way to Ephraim or something like that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I had just been reading that, and he stopped. She died on the way, so he buried her there, and then went on. And I remember seeing that sign that said her tomb was there, and now it was the first thing that I had seen with a biblical character's name on it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I didn't see in all the other places. I didn't, and we went to like the house of Peter. I want to say we went to the house of Peter. That had his name on it as a sign, right? But it was an attraction. The smug was like a road sign of giving you direction of where she's been. It was, for me, it blew my mind where it was like, this is real, bro. Like, and that was, from that point forward, is Israel just looked completely different for me. You know what I'm saying? It was seeing that rocked me, that said, these people are real, man. These people existed, and the people who wrote this were real, and it breathed new life in my faith for the simple fact, like, I needed to see that, and then we went to the museum. I saw the Dead Sea Scrolls, and I'm looking at this like, bro, this is real Dead Sea Scroll. Like,
Yep.
the Essenes wrote this. These are real people who wrote this. And there are people who gave their lives for this place and this stuff that we're experiencing, we're seeing. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
Yep.
God has to be real, bro. And the reason I said it has to be real to me, because I'm like, there are people who paid ultimate penalties and prices and sacrifices for something that they believed in, like the disciples, right?
Yep.
They gave their lives for firsthand knowledge that they claim.
Yep.
Not something somebody taught them. People talk about like a terrorist, right? Somebody who's extremist Islam, right? People who go and kill in the name of jihad, kill in the name of Allah, right? These people are doing that off of the strength of the testimony of someone else, and a lot of people who they've never even met. You know what I'm saying? I don't remember Muhammad dying for the cause of Islam.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? I don't recall that. I could be wrong if I'm wrong, but I don't recall. I could say he died on the deathbed, like as an old man. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And a lot of other prophets, right?
Yep.
But these guys died carrying a message that started with them.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
For real.
They died for something that they was telling people is real, that they said they experienced.
Yeah.
They claim we seen the Christ. We saw him die and we saw him alive again.
Yeah.
We saw him. We put him in the tomb. He was dead.
And then he was out,
you know what I'm
hopping
saying?
3 days later.
Yes, he was dead, bro. Not breathing. And he was in there. And then we saw him alive again.
Jeez.
We saw him alive again. Not just one day, not just 2 days, not just 3 days, bro. 15 days.
Yeah.
We saw him living again, and we saw him ascend to the heavens. We saw that. What? You didn't see that? Say you didn't see it. Say you didn't see that, or I'm gonna kill you. And you just gotta kill me. Cause that's what I saw. Bro, for me, that was enough. That was enough, bro. And I was like, nah, bro. I'm tripping.
Yeah.
I'm tripping. The problem is not the gospel, and the problem was not God or the word of God. The problem was the faith that I had.
Yeah.
I was disappointed and I felt let down, and I started to slip because I put too much stock in the idea of relationship. And those things are important. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Those things are important. But I had to question myself and check my own heart to say, okay, is my faith in God or is my faith in what I call Christianity?
Wow.
You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
And that was the thing. It's like, whose testimony am I receiving? You know what I'm saying? Am I putting my faith, allowing my faith to lean on the character of Christ? Or am I putting my faith relying on the character of a pastor or a preacher or whoever? You know what I'm saying? And what that made me do was when I was there, as far as the culture, I realized it's not America. Like, this is not America. The food was amazing. You know what I'm saying? Jerusalem was incredible. The people were super nice, hospitable. Oh my gosh. You would swear they was from Georgia. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Because Georgia has the South,
Southern
right?
hospitality.
Southern hospitality. You know what I'm saying? So that hospitality they had, man, they were so welcoming. You know what I'm saying? And it was people who had never seen Black Americans before, ever, and they were like following us around. You know what I'm saying? People literally standing up in the restaurant taking pictures of us, like, "Yo, it's a Black person."
It's funny because whenever I don't even know if I told you this. I went to China last year.
Mm.
One of the best experiences I've ever had in my life. And randomly, Josue ended up going the same week that I was to speak at a conference out there.
Wow.
And so I went to Beijing. He went to Shanghai, but I went down to Shanghai for a couple days to go see him.
Nice.
And while we were there, we went to some of the touristy spots. Same thing happened because, like, most people over in China, like, they thought he was LeBron James.
Yeah.
Something like that. Because they'd never seen like a Black guy before.
Funny.
And it was like, And it was so cool. And like even for me, like it's up in Beijing, like they had never seen like a white guy with blue eyes before and brown hair.
I could believe it.
Because and it was
I could
so
believe it.
cool because how they looked at that was with awe and like this is cool.
Yeah.
Rather than just like what the F is this? And
Right,
like,
right.
like disgusting. And so
they did look
so
crazy
cool.
like that. They didn't know who he was. They was like, and the guy came up to him and was like, "Are you a basketball player?"
It's 6'4"
He was
crazy
like,
man.
He was like, nah. And he was like, "Can I still get a picture with you?"
Dude, that's so crazy.
Yo, I would say this. The saddest thing I saw, and the thing I saw a homeless man there. I saw a beggar.
Really?
And I mean, it really changed my perspective when I read the Bible and talk about beggars, talk about the man they brought to the gate called Beautiful, and he's crippled or whatever, and begging, and Peter was like, "Yo, 7 gold have I not, but what I give you, and then they heal him, you know what I mean? Yeah. But I saw a guy who literally was standing like in the middle of like the marketplace with just his hand out like this, just saying, "Please, please, please," just saying over and over and over and over. And you looked at him and was like, "Oh yeah, he's literally depending on what people give him." It wasn't the same as in America. I was like, even in America, the poorest person is rich compared to the poorest person in Israel. Like literally. Yeah. Now, don't get me wrong, there's some very, very, very poor people in America. Yeah. You know what I mean? Especially like Miami. I've gone to Miami and seen some of the homeless people that they have there. And I mean, it's terrible. Don't get me wrong, it's terrible. You know what I mean? But as far as what I experience on a daily from people like standing on the side of the road with signs and things like that, you know what I mean? Like I look at them and be like, you literally have no clue of how well you have it, or how good you have it, you know what I'm saying, compared to like that really means something completely different to me when I saw that. And it's not just because it was Israel. I'm just saying the type of poor people that I saw there was like, there was no question they were depending on whatever shekels they could get in their hands.
Yeah, and like and like something that like we talked about before we started recording was like your opportunity to go to Africa, like 10 years ago, something like that.
Yeah.
And at that time, and it was kind of related to, and just correct me if I'm wrong at any time, kind of related to like your childhood a little bit with like not really being evangelized, but then as well being exposed to like the poverty here in America.
Yeah.
And you were kind of thinking through like, why the heck would I go to Africa whenever there's people struggling here, which is like such a good thing to have, and like something that I said.
Yeah, like when I go home for the holidays, like I go home during that time, like I go home for the holidays, and I'm seeing people who need the gospel way more than anybody that I could think of in Africa or Asia or wherever, in my mind at that time, you know what I mean?
But then like the Lord being able to show you on this trip, and I'm sure he's progressed and like shown you some more. Definitely. But being able to show you on this trip, like, hey, like, show you like physically, like, there's this beggar right here, and like, there's just, I mean, there are needs all around the world, and like, and like what I said as in a response to like you saying that is like missions is often overlooked, people domestically for people internationally, and it's something that like we need to.
Facts. And I think part of that is because of that sentiment, where it's like, well, the poorest person in America is still rich compared to the poorest person in some third world country, or some country that doesn't have as many freedoms and as many opportunities as America has. You know what I mean? So I think from that sentiment, people would neglect Americans who need the gospel and need to be evangelized and need to be helped. And go across the world to do humanitarian work. You know what I mean? So I think there's there's a need for balance. You know what I mean? There's a need for balance. I don't get me wrong. I believe there are those that the Lord calls to go international.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And do the work there. But, at the same time, I believe, there are many of us who the Lord has called and said, just do the work at home. It's like when, one of the, I think it was the guy who had the demon in him. Yeah. Jesus heals him, right? And he's on the boat, and he gets back on the people ask him to leave because he make the demons go into the swine, right? And they run into the water and drown.
Yeah.
And then they, they got afraid of the Christ, and they told him to leave. And then while he was leaving, the man comes to him that he had just healed and was like, "Yo, let me follow you." And then Christ was like, "Nah, stay here.
Stay here.
Present yourself, to the leaders here." And then the scripture said that's what he just told everybody about Christ.
Yeah.
So I think, that same thing is true for a lot of us, where it's like, some people aren't called to go international for the sake of evangelizing as a career move.
Yep.
You know what I mean? As a ministry move. Now, I think, especially from my experience in Israel, I think it's healthy for everybody who can to visit a different country, to just get a fresh perspective of the globe, because it just gives you a new perspective of your own living conditions and where you live and your family and your friends and opportunities and things like that. You get I don't know, it's just a different perspective, because you see that the world is there, especially as a Christian.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? As a believer, as a follower of the Messiah, we've been given a form of gospel that's, for example, Romans 10:9-10. If you confess with your mouth the Lord Jesus, believe in your heart that God is raising from the dead, you shall be saved. For with the mouth man confess to salvation. I mean, confess unto righteousness, and with his heart he believe unto salvation, right? That's a common thing that people say as a formula of salvation. Like, oh, if you want to be saved, say these words.
Yep.
Right? And then people say those words, and then they're like, oh, I'm saved. And I'm not saying that genuine faith doesn't arise from that, right? But that's not what that meant. If you confess with your mouth, what Paul was getting at was, if you're saying the same thing that everyone else is saying, as far as the leadership, like the apostles and all those, about Jesus, because he was believed to be a criminal, right? And he died he was crucified by the Roman government for breaking laws, for causing an uprising, if you will. That's what they blamed. And then you had the other leadership, the Israelite leadership or Jewish leadership, that was accusing him of blasphemy.
Yeah.
So they saw him as a criminal. So Paul is like, no, if you confess, if you're saying the same things that we're saying about him, and the reason that was important was because it came with a consequence. You know what I'm saying? It comes with a consequence. So it's important about what you're saying about him.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, hey, if you're saying that and you're believing in your heart, then you shall be saved, right? Because you're believing on him to the point of even losing your life. You understand there's a consequence behind your confession, right? So going to other cultures, and other countries, and seeing other people and how they move and how they live. Like, when we went to Jerusalem, I saw so many 5-year-old kids walking from school alone.
Yeah.
Literally alone. I'm talking about many. And when I say, man, Israeli drivers worse than Atlanta drivers.
That's what I've heard.
Bro, it was places where there were like no stop signs, no stoplights.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Especially in Bethlehem. You know what I'm saying? It was like no stoplights, bro. It's like, it was crazy in certain sections, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was, you had to get in where you fit in. You know what I'm saying? And there was like children whose parents were entrusting them to be mature enough to walk, and then trusting in the society that they were living in to not harm their children.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? The idea that you have to join the army once you're 18. It's no question. If you're an Israeli citizen, you have to join the armed forces. You have to. And then once you finish your tour, your years in the military, when you get out, if you elect to get out early and not make it a career, you have to go in some type of career field that's for the betterment of the community of the country.
So good.
You know what I mean? Like, you have to. Like, there's no questioning it. You know what I'm saying? So, like, seeing the system of how they do things, you know what I'm saying, was eye-opening, man.
Yeah, it makes you think about things. And going to the cultural part, like, something that is a thought that I've mentioned a few times on the podcast, but that I think first came to me in 2017 is that every culture around the world reflects like a unique reality of this world, a unique part of our spiritual disciplines in terms of importance, and a unique characteristic of the Lord. And that the more that we're able to travel around and engage these different cultures, a clearer picture of all those we get. And so, like, for example, like, and I say these every time just because they stick out, and I will never forget them. Like the appreciation for beauty in European cultures.
Yeah.
Like we don't understand the economic value that Paris has to the world versus, sorry, North Dakota, Fargo, North Dakota.
Yeah.
like because of the Arc de Triomphe, because of the Eiffel Tower, because of all the investments that were
Right.
made into beauty and the appreciation of it, that generates billions for their economy every year. Latin cultures, the pace and the importance of family. Asian cultures, respect for family laws, whatever. And American culture with work ethic. Now, all of those can be taken too far to idolize them, but I really think there are like very valuable things in every culture around the world that we can learn. And so, because you talked about some of them with Israel, what's another characteristic of that culture that you think is a little bit different than America that like we could take on here and live like a more abundant and just like fuller life?
It's probably the way that they apply the Torah.
Okay. Interesting.
In America as Christians, right? There's, at least this is how I was taught, where it's like, where there's no need for the law. Right? There's no need for the law anymore. Christ has come, he's died. There's no need for the law. In America, that sentiment, what it has done is told every, like the scripture said, how the Lord will write the law on your heart. Right?
Yeah.
So when we say, well, there's no need for the law because the law is done away with, ignoring the fact that Christ said he didn't come to do away with the law, right? But say, well, there's no need for the law. God will write it on your heart. What it speaks to, especially a new believer, is that, oh, I'm to do whatever is right in my heart. And that's, and it gets us in trouble because the scripture tells us not to trust in our hearts.
Our heart's deceitful.
Heart is deceitful and desperately wicked, right? So when you say, there's no law, don't worry about the law, God will write it on your heart. Well, the Christian neglects to read or to study the Torah because the Torah is the law.
Yeah.
Right? So, because the way it works is you study and read the Torah, know what it says, and then the Spirit brings it to your remembrance.
So good.
Right? That's the writing on your heart. He writes it on your heart. So certain things, like Christ, did Christ do every law? No, because there were some laws that didn't apply to him. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Some of them didn't apply. He didn't have to observe certain laws because they didn't apply. But all the ones that did apply to him, he did. Yeah. You see what I'm saying? And what did he say? He told us to follow him, do as he did. So when Paul said, when the prophet, because it wasn't just Paul who wrote that, but in a prophecy, the prophet wrote and said that in the last day, that's what the Lord would do, right? Because that was the Lord speaking, saying that that's what he's going to do. He's going to write the law upon our hearts, right? What he's talking about is there's a degree of knowing what the Torah says, and then there's an application of the Torah according to the walk that we have with the Lord. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so when you look in America, you see so much chaos and just debauchery. You know what I'm saying? And everybody feels like I'm a Christian.
Yep.
And I'm going to go to heaven and you can't judge me. And it's like, why can't I judge you? Don't worry about what I'm doing because the law is written on my heart.
Yeah.
Maybe that's for you. It's just not for me. You know what I'm saying? I remember, and then I won't go on that tangent, but and that's the thing I saw in Israel where it was like the way it's applied, on a Sabbath, shut down.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah, it shut down, man. It was so beautiful, man, because like I literally saw like generations, right? I saw an old man with a younger adult male that I assume was his son.
Yeah.
With some boys, about 2 or 3 little boys walking ahead of them.
Yeah.
Right. And the old man and the younger man was holding hands. And you saw that occasionally on the Sabbath, right? They're heading, and that's what our tour guide was letting us know, that they're on it. That was a part of the culture where they're walking, they're on their way to a relative's house to have dinner for the Sabbath.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And every Saturday, every Friday night, at a certain time, Shabbat, right? They shut down, and then all day Saturday. And it was like, I learned in the application of the Torah, the way they applied, that in the scriptures, in the law of God, right? You're commanded. That's what the Sabbath day was about.
Yeah.
You're commanded to stop working and have fun. That's what the Sabbath is.
Yep.
It's, hey, stop working, go spend time with your friends and family, your loved ones, drink wine, eat, have fun.
Yep.
That's what the Sabbath is. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
That's what the Sabbath. And in America, we're overworked, all in the name of our faith. You know what I'm saying? And we don't even take Sabbath or enjoy Sabbath, all in the name of our faith. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I learned that, bro, that's an error. That's a bad application of the Torah.
Yeah.
And I saw that in Israel, the way that they applied that, getting to the hotel and, you know, seeing people enjoying their families and walking down the street, seeing people. And we visited a couple of homes, right, while we were there on the Sabbath, and they walking us through their customs and, you know, what certain prayers that they had and certain songs that they sing with their families. I mean, it was beautiful, man. You know what I mean? And
So
that's
good.
the thing I looked and said, that's what we're missing in America. We're missing that in America. And they hit me while I was like, that's why Israel is blessed.
Dang.
That's why, because of the application of the Torah.
Dang.
You know what I mean? And they didn't abandon it. And I was like, that's what happened with my life, where I was like, yeah, bro, that's what was wrong with my faith. What was wrong with my faith was that I had been taught to abandon the Torah.
Dang. And it's crazy because in church today, kind of going towards abandoning the law and it being written on our heart is the pastor was talking about how we're one of the first cultures in the world as a result of postmodernism that has taken truth from being something that's existential or external, such as the law, such as the word, and taken it to something that's internal, where my truth reigns or anything like that. And whenever we take that and apply that in the church, we get exactly what you're talking about, where we
America
disregard the Sabbath or anything like that.
And we're overworked and we're frustrated and our families are unhappy, right? We're unhappy. We work, and we get, and it's not enough. You know what I'm saying? And we overwork, and we don't rest, and we don't enjoy our families. And before we know it, we look up and our children are grown and they have issues with us because of what they didn't get to experience in their childhoods, and they have dysfunction going on in their hearts and confusion and things like that. And, you know, it's like, no, there was a reason why the Lord gave them the Sabbath. And that's what Christ said, that the Sabbath was made for man and man was not made for the Sabbath. Right? It was made for man. So it's like, nah, man, it's like that. And that's why we make it a point, even in our community, where it's like, nah, we're honoring the Sabbath as much as we can. You know, it's not legalistic to the point where it's like, you can't do anything. You shouldn't do it. Like, nah, if you can observe the Sabbath, observe. And that's what I learned about Christianity. That's I learned that Christianity, the definition of Christianity and being saved, right, is I'm supposed to, as much as I possibly can, to observe the laws of the Lord, right? And in areas where I fall short, the blood of Christ covers that. Yeah. Dang. You see what I'm saying? It covers. So it's hey, you observe Jesus said it, if you love me, keep my commandments. Yeah. Right? What was his commandments? He said, I give you 2 new commandments. Not that they were new, from old. They've always been there. Love the Lord your
Mhm.
God with all your heart, mind, soul, and spirit. And the other was like unto it. Love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets. So
Yeah.
what that means is, doesn't mean that none of what the law and the prophets said mean anything. It just means these two things. And even when you go through the 10 commandments, first 3, I'm the Lord your God, have no other God. Make no images and bow down to them. Don't use the name of the Lord in vain. Remember the Sabbath day, keep it holy. Boom.
All
Love the
goes
Lord
with
your
that.
God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. Right? The next one, the 5, honor your mother and father. Do not murder. Do not commit adultery. Do not covet. Do not steal. Do not bear false witness. Right? I'm forgetting one.
I think that's 10 because you did 4 and then 6. So,
Okay, yeah, there we go.
yeah.
So 6. And that's loving your neighbor. Because if I love you, I'm not going to steal from you. I'm not going to kill you. I'm not. You see what I'm saying? And the law, when it talks about having, certain other laws where it's like, if I offend you, I'm to pay, not just give you what I took from you, but I'm to give you a percentage on top of it to restore our relationship.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But in Americanized Christianity, it's like, if I offend you, you should just be okay with my apology and I shouldn't have to do anything. And that's if you get an apology from me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's if you get an apology. And if you don't, hey, get over it. You're supposed to be following Jesus anyway. But if I do apologize, that should be enough for you. I'm not supposed to do anything extra. And it's like, whoa, you took something valuable from me or you hurt me, you broke. What I'm supposed to do is I'm supposed to go out of my way to restore the relationship that has been broken. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So if dog on me, I run over your dog, like a sorry may not, if it's not doing it for you, then let me go out and purchase you a new puppy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Let me pay you for what you lost. And on top of, let me restore and then pay you on top of what you lost. Give you something extra. You know what I'm saying? Go out of my way to restore this relationship with my neighbor. You know what I'm saying? And that's the thing that you see in Israel that I think is missing in America. You know what I'm saying?
Man. That's so good. And so how's life been? We'll kind of wrap it up with this. How's life been since coming back from Israel? Because it's been a few months. I know like a couple friends who've been over there or friends who've gone out of the country for the first time have struggled with kind of culture shock or different things like that. And so, yeah, like, how's life been? Are you struggling with any of that? Things good? Like,
like I said, I was broken when I went.
Yeah.
So I didn't get broken when I went.
Yeah.
So some people I know, people who are struggling with culture shock was probably because they got broken when they went. They went, like, oh my gosh, this is crazy, and then it broke them. You know what I'm saying? And then now they're going through the rebuilding process, right? Well, before I went, I was broken. And then I go while I was trying to, be restored and get put back together, right? And the Lord was already kind of molding that already, right? And then by the time I went, it was just the perfect storm. You know what I'm saying? It was the link, or it became the glue for me. You know what I'm saying? So now it's life. Nobody's life is perfect. So it's not perfect. You know what I'm saying? But it's definitely different.
Yeah.
It's different how I move. It's different how I think. It's different how I talk. It's different how I interact with my family, with my neighbors, with my friends. You know what I mean? It's different. How I view the world is different. So it's better in that aspect. I miss Israel.
For real.
I miss Israel though. I mean, it was amazing, man. It was an amazing trip. We were with some really, really amazing people.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I was with my wife. We had a few of our friends. The people that we got a chance to connect with and be around and laugh and share some laughs and have conversations with and just really let our hair down and enjoy life. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't the pressure of America. We didn't have to be anything. You know what I'm saying? It was just a visitation. We just be here, just be present, be in the moment. And so in that moment, we got a chance to just experience a lot of great stuff and really connect with the country in a way, and the Bible in a way that we never was able to. You know what I'm saying? Walking inside of a tomb that that they are really, really convinced is the tomb of Christ. Like, yo,
Yeah.
he actually lay, seeing a mountain that looked like a face. Literally in my, like looking at it, like,
That's
yo,
crazy.
this is the Skull Mountain, bro.
Man.
Golgotha, you know, walking through the Garden of Gethsemane, you know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
they, you know, they built a church over the rock that they claimed was the rock that he went to and fell and prayed, and they built like this big church. And when you walk in there, man, the atmosphere is like, you know, something serious happened here.
Yeah.
Like it was just a fit. Like never experienced it. I've heard it, and I'm not even gonna front. I thought it was exaggeration.
But
I'm not even gonna stunt. When people say that kind of stuff, it was like there's something in the air, and you feel it, and you this and that. I was like,
presence of the Lord is
okay,
special
sure.
there.
Right. You know,
Yeah.
it's like, man, you walk through the garden and it's just the somberness of how it feels, you know what I'm saying? And it's like it's no question, it's standing on the Mount of Olives, you know what I mean? Like standing on that mountain where it's like, this is crazy. Jesus somewhere over here. Christ sat down and looked at the temple and told them about his return. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And it's been prophesied he's going to return right to this same mountain somewhere. You know, so it's like that. It's just, I don't know, man. It's just something. It just did something for, I think, everybody that went on that trip. You know what I'm saying? I think it does that for everyone who goes to Israel. Like, I'm a believer. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm a believer. So yeah, man, it was amazing. Definitely go.
Dude,
You know what I'm saying? Go.
For real. Go. I'm hoping to go soon. We can see whenever the Lord wants that to be, but hopefully soon, man. But dude, again, thank you so much.
Yeah, nah, man. Pleasure's all mine, man. I appreciate it, man. I appreciate the opportunity to show we finally got a chance to connect. I thought it was good conversation, you know what I'm saying? But finally got a chance to connect. So, man, I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, man. And hopefully just talking about like your experiences as well. Like the Lord was able to show you something new. And show you something even further. Because that's something I love about conversation that I think is definitely a part of it, is the Lord giving us a further understanding of truth. And so, yeah, dude, just much appreciated. Like, thanks for being a great friend, being a great
I appreciate you, man. Thanks for being patient, bro. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. You allowed me to cancel a couple of times, and I needed them times, bro. I definitely needed them days, so I appreciate it, man.
For sure, bro.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, hopefully continue great things for you up here in Nashville and
I appreciate
all around.
It. Likewise.
But
you too. Be safe in your travels, bro.
Appreciate it, man. But all right, y'all, that'll be a wrap for us today. Again, big thanks to Tony for just joining us. We'll put all of his description or all of his information in the description below, all of his music, all of his social media accounts. As well, if you would like to support our work and mission here at Perspectives, or if you'd like that nice little tax write-off, our website will be included below. You can go there and make a donation. Just help us keep organizing trips, help us keep hosting these podcasts, everything like that. As always, as well, if you like today's episode, please comment, share, like, and subscribe. Much love. God bless.
Peace.